Yes, it appears to be. Just thought I'd do a little live stream. I've just finished a short story, so I'm in a position now where I'm kind of not in between projects, but I'm not going to start writing again for a couple of weeks or so. I'm currently working on a book of short stories. I've just completed story number 4. That's all done and dusted after editing the bloody thing for about 3 times as per usual. So I just thought I'd have a little chat about what I've been reading, what I've been doing, stuff like that. I finished reading a Dean Koontz novel a little while back. I've only read two or 3 books by Dean Koontz. I read Demon Seed a little while ago. I was quite impressed by that, and so I gave a book called Intensity a go. Intensity by Dean Koontz, and well, I'll get into that in a moment. Let's just look at Dean Koontz's online presence. He's a weird-looking fucker. I mean, I've seen some haircuts in my time, but I think Dean Koontz wins for weirdest haircut. He's got like a beehive on top of his head. He's a weird-looking bloke. He's quite old now, I think. Let's have a look at his Wikipedia page. Dean Koontz. Dean Ray Koontz, born the 9th of July 1945. Yeah. He's like in his 70s. American author. His novels are billed as suspense thrillers, but frequently incorporate elements of horror, fantasy, science fiction, mystery, and satire. Many of his books have appeared on the New York Times bestseller list, with 14 hardcovers and 16 paperbacks. He's from Pennsylvania. He's quite a big name, Dean Koontz. He said that he was regularly beaten and abused by his alcoholic father, which influenced his later writing, as also did the courage of his physically diminutive mother in standing up to her husband. Right, so he had a rough childhood. What was his first book, I wonder? In his spare time, Dean Koontz wrote his first novel, Star Quest, which was published in 1968. He went on to write over a dozen science fiction novels. Converted to Catholicism. In the 70s, he began writing suspense and horror fiction, both under his own name and pseudonyms. All right, this is interesting. Dean Koontz's editors convinced him after a while that he shouldn't switch back from science fiction to horror, switching genres, because authors who do that invariably fall victim to negative crossover, alienating established fans and simultaneously failing to pick up any new ones. That's interesting. That is interesting. I write horror and science fiction horror. I think they're close enough to be okay. You know, if I started publishing romance novels and that wouldn't work. But I think horror and sci-fi horror is close enough. Yeah. Demon Seed. Right, pet dogs. Don't really care about that. Where's his book catalogue? I want to see the bibliography. Yeah, here we go. Right, so Demon Seed was his earliest book, it says here. I don't think that's right. Then The Passengers, The Watchers. I think I might have read that as a young boy, but I've got very hazy memories of it. Watchers 3. Right, Intensity, 1997. Oh no, I'm looking at film adaptations here. Where's his... I don't know. Intensity. I think he wrote Intensity in the 1990s, and that's the one I recently read. It's a serial killer novel, and it follows the story of China, a young woman who meets a friend and then goes to stay at her friend's parents' house. And it just so happens that on that particular night, some crazed psychotic serial killer breaks into that house and kills everybody except her. And the killer doesn't know that she's in the house, so everyone dies except her. And then she kind of follows this serial killer. She's in the back of this motorhome with him. She escapes, and then she goes back and finds him again. It's a bit silly. The characters are quite well crafted, and there's a decent amount of gore as well. I was quite impressed with the savage descriptions in the book. I like a bit of gore. I like books to be shocking, but there's a decent amount of gore. The killer is described pretty well. His psychology is described pretty well. That was okay, but it's so... the prose is just not... It comes across as really amateur. It's so overly descriptive. There's like... if one of the characters just gets up and walks into another room to pick something up, it's like 3 or 4 pages just for that. And it's not clever descriptions either. It's just like mundane, boring descriptions. It just goes into so much detail about unnecessary stuff. I found it a bit bland. It's full of like banal character actions, and it's got a real amateur feel to it. I wasn't impressed by it. Demon Seed is definitely better. Demon Seed is pretty good, but in Intensity didn't really blow me away. He kept describing tarmac as blacktop as well. I don't know whether this is an American thing or not. In the UK, like a black road is tarmac. It's made of tarmac. Kept using the word blacktop, which I found quite jarring. It was like the experience of reading this book. It was like a weird mix of B-grade amateur prose mixed in with insightful psychological horror. It was quite scary. It was quite scary at times. He had this... I'm going to kind of spoil the story a bit, not too much. As well as this young girl who gets caught by the killer, the killer's got another young girl. Oh, all right, thank you. Blacktop is an Americanism. Right, well, I've never heard that one before. People say tarmac in the UK, but I've never heard blacktop. He's got this other young girl kind of locked in a basement, and he's got her locked in this special room full of dolls' houses and weird dolls, like China dolls. And he's had her locked up there for about a year or so, and he's just slowly breaking her mind. Not her body. He's just wearing her down and just crushing her personality and slowly crushing her will to live. And that was described pretty well. That was quite disturbing. That it was quite a bit like Silence of the Lambs, but more so. That was quite well written, but the good scenes are buried amongst pages and pages of just fucking like unnecessary like actions that you just don't need to read about. I reckon about 30% of intensity could be shaved off, and it's just not needed. So if the book was shorter and just written a little bit better, it would be okay. I think I gave the book 3 stars, and I was being generous there. And after reading this, I don't think I'm going to read another Dean Koontz book. He's kind of put me off. He's such a big name, though. I think he's still got a big readership. I'm looking at his film adaptations here. I want to look at his the years in which he released his books and whether he's got any new ones. Dean Koontz books in order. Yeah, there we go. Right, I think this is right. Beast Child in 1970, then Shattered, Hanging On. Demon Seed was written in 1973. That was like an early one for him. After the Last Race, Nightmare Journey, Dragonfly. Good cover. I still prefer 1970s book covers to modern covers, by the way. Icebound, Face of Fear, The Funhouse, Whispers. This is going into the 1980s now. Thunder, Phantoms. He's got loads of books, loads and loads of books. The Bad Place. So they're mainly thriller/horror novels, I'd say. I think he stopped writing sci-fi back in the 70s. Hang on, where's Intensity then? Did I go past that? Can't see Intensity on it. All right, what's his newest book? What is his newest release? The Crimson Witch, 1971. Is Dean Koontz still writing books? Koontz writes 2 books each year. That's a lot. The House at the End of the World was released in January. After Death will arrive in July. Right, so After Death. Weird haircut though. Even back in the 1970s, I think that haircut would have looked a bit weird. Seems like a nice bloke though. Right, look. Here's a new article by the Los Angeles Times. Why Dean Koontz's new book is his favourite. In a rare public appearance, best-selling author Dean Koontz joins Times readers to discuss his new genre-crossing novel. So he's back to crossing genres. The Bad Weather Friend. Bad Weather Friend. He's written more than 140 books. I wonder who's written the most books, Stephen King or Dean Koontz. They've been translated into 38 languages, sold more than 500 million copies. What makes this new book so special? I had so much fun writing it. Never had a moment I had to beat myself up to get to the next page. That tends to mean the book worked very well. Yeah. It becomes one of my favourites if I suffered less in the writing of it. Yeah. Some people who don't write, they pick up a book and they presume that writing a book is a nice, relaxed process. Somebody sitting there just typing away, you know, the sun shining, the birds singing, and it all goes smoothly. It's a battle. Writing a book is a battle. Yeah, The Bad Weather Friend, that's his new one. I'm sure it'll sell thousands of copies. He's very well established. I don't think I'll read it though. Yeah, Dean Koontz. So don't bother reading Intensity. I can tell you that now. It's not really worth it. It's quite long, 400 pages. 400 pages of what's the word? Unnecessary descriptions. Pedantic. That's it. 400 pages of pedantic, unnecessary descriptions. Don't bother. Right. So let's get rid of Dean Koontz. Goodbye, Dean. You may remember from another live stream I did recently, this thing here, Jonathan Franzen, Purity. What the fuck was I thinking? What was I thinking? Jonathan Franzen, it's a story about a young girl. What was I thinking reading this? It's like a family-based novel. A few years ago, I read a book called The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. I just found it on like some kind of power list. Gave it a go. It was a family. It's about a family. Families getting together. Family this, family that. Not my genre, but I recognised that it was written very well, and I saw it through to the end. It was a long book as well. Put it down. I thought, okay, it's quite impressive, but not my genre. I was recently on holiday. I needed something to read, and I found this in a second-hand bookstore. The cover caught my eye. I quite like the picture of the girl there. It's like psychedelic colours. It caught my eye. I recognised the name Jonathan Franzen. Gave it a go, even though it's a big old book as well. But Jonathan Franzen, he's like, he just seems to belong to a different breed of human being than I belong to. He's very political. He tends to be switched on to social issues, for like family stuff. It's just, look, I'm going to read his Wikipedia page here. Jonathan Franzen, born 1959, American novelist and essayist. Right, bad hair. Are your books all in English? My books are all in English. Yes, they're all in English. I'm gonna log into YouTube on my laptop here so I can answer some of these comments. Hang on. Jonathan Franzen. American. His 2001 novel, The Corrections, a sprawling satirical family drama, drew widespread acclaim. Blah, blah, blah. He's famous for having an argument with Oprah Winfrey. This book, The Corrections, was going to be on Oprah Winfrey's book list. And he complained about that, saying that Oprah Winfrey sometimes has mediocre books on her lists. So she took it off and there's a little spat between them. That probably helped his career. Got him a bit of exposure or whatever. He contributes to the New Yorker magazine. He was born in Western Springs, Illinois. What did he study? A degree in German. He studied abroad in Germany. Blah blah blah. He speaks fluent German. Early novels. The 27th City, 88. Yeah, in 1992, Strong Motion focuses on a dysfunctional family. He likes writing about family life. That's his thing. The Corrections, 2001, that brought him into the spotlight. Look, The Corrections was selected for Oprah Winfrey's book club. Franzen initially participated in the selection, and however, he expressed unease with the selection. In an interview, he expressed his worry that the Oprah logo on the cover dissuaded men from reading the book. He wrote a book called Freedom. It's about neighbours and a couple, again, family life. Yeah, and then Purity. 2012. Might be a bit earlier than that. I'm just logging into YouTube on here because I want to see some of these comments. Usually it's quick, but of course, now I'm doing a live stream, it's taking a long bloody time. Bear with me. All right, whatever. Yeah, so don't bother with this book. It's 317 pages. He's a good writer. He's the real deal. He can write well. His prose is excellent. His character development is just above par. It's so good. It almost comes across like he's showing off. But he goes too far with character development. Like, you read about 100 pages just finding out everything about each and every character. their family life, their upbringing. But it's at the expense of plot. Character development is good, but I like a bit of plot as well. It's just a bit too much. It's about a young woman basically who's part of a dysfunctional family, and she kind of lives in this squat. She runs away from home, and she meets this German man who's a bit like that WikiLeaks guy, and she starts working for this WikiLeaks type company, and it's all about, it's just a young woman's journey, but it's about feminism. It explores feminism, social justice, politics, all of the things that I tend to avoid on an average day. All the stuff that I don't really like reading about. Hang on, I might have finally bloody logged in. Hang on. Bloody hell. Right. I can see your comments now. Are your books all in English, or are they translated? No, my books are only in English at the moment. I was considering getting them translated into Vietnamese or German. I heard that German is a good language to get books translated into, because there's quite a big market over there, but I haven't really gotten around to doing that yet. Stephen King has published over 60 novels and around 200 short stories. Dean Koontz has published well over 100 books. Okay, so if we're counting short stories, I suppose Stephen King has published the most. Yeah, Jonathan Franzen, don't bother. I mean, it's, if you like, it's not romance. If you like political stuff, if you like reading about social commentary, social justice and all that malarkey, you might enjoy this book, but it's not for me. I actually made it to page, like, I actually read about 350 pages before I DNF'd it. That's the tragedy. I should have just DNF'd it after about 5 pages. So, yeah, I read Intensity by Dean Koontz. I read that. What have I got on the horizon? What have I got on the horizon? Well, I'm just about to read Filth by Irvine Welsh. I've read a few books by Irvine Welsh and I have enjoyed them. I DNF'd Trainspotting, his main book, surprisingly. That didn't really impress me much, but neither did Skag Boys, actually. I read Skag Boys, which is a big, thick book as well. It's quite a beast. And I found that to be pretty pointless. It was quite entertaining, but there was no actual point to the story. And I even read, after finishing it, I read a few reviews in the book, and somebody else had actually left a review saying, completely and utterly pointless. I loved it. I found it completely and utterly pointless and quite entertaining, but certainly not worth the time investment by any means. So I wasn't impressed by those two books, but I did enjoy A Decent Ride by Irvine Welsh. That was funny. I actually DNF'd another book of his called Ecstasy as well, which is a short story collection. The first story was great. I liked the first story. The second one was okay, but I actually DNF'd it during the third story. But despite all of that, I'm willing to give this one a go. I don't really like reading about Scotland. Scotland kind of depresses me. So that's the main thing that puts me off reading Irving Welsh's books. I don't like feeling as though I'm in Scotland. I've been there a couple of times. My grandmother was from Scotland. She was from a very small town called Hoyk in Scotland. I've been there a couple of times. It's very grey, isn't it? It's very grey, you know. But he is a funny writer. He's entertaining. I also watched the Acid House again recently. I haven't read the book, but I've seen the film. I watched it in the 90s, and I rewatched it recently. That's very good, especially story number 2, called The Soft Touch, or A Soft Touch. That's very entertaining. Let's have a look at his Wikipedia page. He's quite weird looking as well. He's got this kind of downturned mouth. His mouth goes down at the edges. Weird looking fucker. Irving Welsh, born 27th of September 1958. He's about my mum's age. Scottish novelist, short story writer. His 93 novel, Trainspotting, was made into a film of the same name. He was born in Leith, a port area of the Scottish capital, Edinburgh. Port area. He states that he was born in 1958, though according to Glasgow police, his birth record is dated around 1951. Stayed in housing schemes growing up. His mother worked as a waitress. His father was a dock worker in Leith. His father died when he was 25. He left Ainsley Park High School when he was 16 and then completed a City and Guilds course in electrical engineering. Right, so he didn't go to uni or anything. He left school and got City and Guilds. That's quite similar to what I did. He became an apprentice TV repairman until an electric shock persuaded him to move on to a series of other jobs. He left Edinburgh for the London punk scene in 1978, where he played guitar and sang in the Public Lice and Stairway 13. A series of arrests for petty crimes, and finally a suspended sentence for trashing a North London community centre inspired Welsh to correct his ways. He worked for Hackney Council in London and studied computing with the support of the Manpower Services. Right, so he's a working class man. He's working class. Kind of reminds me of my own early life a little bit. He returned to Edinburgh in the late 80s, where he worked for the City Council in Housing Department, and then studied for an MBA at Heriot-Watt University. So he did go to uni. Doesn't say what he studied. Welsh has published 11 novels and 4 collections of short stories. That's a lot. Trainspot in 1993. Turned into a film, of course. The film's good. He next released The Acid House, a collection of short stories from Rebel Inc. That's quite psychedelic, that, The Acid House. And it's quite supernatural in a way. Yeah, the minds of a baby and a drug user swap bodies. God, he meets God and turns him into a fly. His third book was Marabou Stalk Nightmares. His next book, Ecstasy, here we go. I actually DNF'd this. 3 Tales of Chemical Romance. Became his most high-profile work since Trainspotting. Released in the wave of publicity surrounding the film. 3 unconnected novellas, yeah. The thing that annoyed me about that book, Ecstasy, is it's supposed to be 3 novellas connected with the theme of ecstasy. But ecstasy only plays a tiny part in some of the stories. They're not really about ecstasy. All right, here we go. I'm about to read Filth. This was 1998. A corrupt police officer and his tapeworm served as the narrators for his third novel, Filth, 1998. The main character of Filth was a vicious, sociopathic policeman. The novel was adapted to a film with the same name. Glue, I thought about reading this. Yeah, it's a bit like Trainspotting by the looks of it, Glue. It's about a group of youngsters. I've revisited some of them in passing in Glue. Welsh brought most of the Trainspotting characters back for a sequel, Porno. I found a paperback copy of Porno in a second-hand bookstore. I love the cover. It's like a blow-up doll cover. But I didn't read it because it's basically a sequel to Trainspotting. I didn't really enjoy that. Skag Boys, that's the other one I read, 2012. Fairly new in my eyes. Set in Leaf. Yeah, don't bother with Skag Boys, not unless you're a hardcore Trainspotting fan. The Sex Lives of Siamese Twins. And A Decent Ride, 2015. A Decent Ride is very entertaining. It's about this cab driver called Juice Terry Lawson, and he's like a nymphomaniac. Now I've thought about reading this one, The Blade Artist, because even though I DNF'd Trainspotting the novel, I am a big fan of the film. I love the film, and Begbie is terrifying in that film, of course. He's got like little man syndrome. He's like a small character, but he's vicious and he's very dangerous. Begbie, Francis Begbie. And yeah, right, his 10th novel is called The Blade Artist, released in 2016. And it's about Begbie after he gets out of prison or something. Centres around the seemingly... The Blade Artist centres around Francis Begbie, now living in California with a wife and children. I think it starts off with Begbie in prison. And he goes on this art course in prison, and the art teacher is like a really attractive blonde woman. And I think he gets with her, gets out of prison, moves to California and becomes a yuppie, and starts drinking red wine and stuff and going to art galleries. Completely different life. But then I think one of his old friends in Glasgow calls him and says that something's kicked off, and they expect him to go back there and fight and be the big tough guy again. I'm tempted to read The Blade Artist. Hello, Paul. I'm currently reading Ligotti's The Conspiracy Against the Human Race. God, what are you, a glutton for punishment? I recall that you said you enjoyed it and that you kind of agreed with it. Could you say a little more about that? I love Train Spotting. Wonderful soundtrack. Yeah, it is. Good soundtrack. I've read The Conspiracy Against the Human Race about 3 times now. The first time it terrified me, but it was kind of like reading my own diary. It tells you nothing that you don't already know, but seeing it put down in print on paper is still scary nonetheless. It's a book that has changed my life in a bad way, really. It haunts me. The philosophy in that book is something that is in the back of my mind day in, day out. Philosophics, I read Conspiracy Against It. What did you think of it, Philosophics? Tell me what you thought of it. It's a book that I kind of wish I'd never read. I was kind of pessimistic before reading it, but it certainly hasn't helped. It's helped in the sense that I know that other people out there think the same way as I do. It's kind of given me a sense of company. It's good in that way. I read it a second time. I read it a second time. I had to kind of push myself through it the second time. Not because it was disturbing, but it's kind of not boring, a bit boring and bland. And then I read it a third time more recently, and I noticed a few other things in there. People have pointed out that it's got quite a comical tone to it, and I think it has. It's like trench humour. I've got no plans to read it again. I'm kind of done with it for the foreseeable future. It's a good book. I'm a fan of the book, but I don't think I need to subject myself to it anymore. I think I've kind of explored it enough. So that's my thoughts on that. I think the next thing I've got Filth by Irvine Welsh on my Kindle, ready to go. I don't like reading about Scotland, but it seems I like a bit of humour, and this book seems quite humorous. And I think most Irvine Welsh fans praise this book. I think it's one of his best ones. It was decent. I preferred Benatar's Better Never to Have Been. Yeah, I actually prefer The Conspiracy Against the Human Race. I find that a bit more accessible. David Benatar's okay, but I find his books to be quite academic, which is fair enough, but I'm struggling with academic books at the moment. I've been reading Guns, Germs and Steel by Jared Diamond for a while now, and I have to it's just the writing style is just too bloody mechanical for me. And with mechanical academic books like that, with like rigid prose, I have to just read one chapter and then put it down for about 2 weeks and then read it again. It's slow, yes, it bloody is slow. It's an interesting book. It asks the question, why are some countries rich and advanced and developed, whereas other countries aren't? And he puts forward some interesting arguments relating to the kind of the climates of certain countries, the animals there that are able to be domesticated, and the plants and the food that are able to be domesticated. And he also puts forward an interesting argument whereas Eurasia you can easily go from east to west across Eurasia with the same climate. But if you go over towards the Americas, that's got more of a north-south. You have to go north-south across the Americas, then you have to change climate. and that's quite damaging. It's an interesting book, but it's very slow, and it's very repetitive as well. So I'm about 80% through it. And I'll read one chapter, put it down for about 2 weeks to fucking recover from the monotony of it, and then read another one. I'm determined to finish it now because I've read 80% of it, but it's fucking slow. It's the same with the third chimpanzee. Much better than Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, which reads like the Bible. The Conspiracy is a very dark book. Would you say Benatar's is just as good? I would recommend. I've read Better Never to Have Been, and I've read the Human Predicament. And both of those books were quite tough to get through for the same reasons as Jared Diamond's books. I kind of recommend the Human Predicament. David Grieber's work was more readable to me. Yeah, I'm kind of taking a break from academic philosophical books at the moment. I'm just in the mood to read novels at the moment, mainly horror, but also a bit of Irving Welsh. I'm just reading fiction at the moment. Another book that I've been trying to push myself through is a book by Desmond Morris. And I'm a fan of Desmond Morris. I really liked The Naked Ape, and I liked the Human Zoo as well. But I'm reading Man Watching, and I've been reading that for bloody months now. And for the same reason, it's just too technical. When these professors write books, they've been trained to write in a certain way. They've been trained to write in a prose that comes across as a textbook. It feels like you're reading a textbook, and it's a bloody slog to get through. I just want to read novels for a while. So that's that. Irving Welsh. Let's read a bit more about Irving Welsh. So I'm thinking about reading The Blade Artist. Oh, and The Blade Artist has got a sequel itself. So The Blade Artist is a kind of a sequel to Trainspotting. A sequel to The Blade Artist entitled Dead Men's Trousers was released 2018, newish, and sees Mark Renton's Sick Boy and Spud reuniting with Francis Begbie. In 2021, a TV adaptation of Crime was launched in the UK on BritBox, starring Doug Ray Scott. Welsh worked on the project. This is the first TV adaptation ever made out of a book by Irving Welsh. What about The Acid House? Themes. As well as recreational drug use, Welsh's fiction and non-fiction is dominated by the question of working class and Scottish identity in the period spanning the 1960s to the present day. Within this, he explores the rise and fall of the council housing scheme, denial of opportunity, low paid work, unemployment, social assistance, sectarianism, football, hooliganism, sex, suppressed homosexuality, dance clubs, Freemasonry, Irish republicanism, sodomy, class division. See, Irving Welsh gets political as well. He gets political, but unlike Jonathan Franzen, there's actually like humour. He does it in a humorous way, so it's tolerable. Sam Leaf, writing in the Financial Times, argues that Welsh's concerns are with sin and salvation, with the exercise of free will, and with the individual soul. Blah, blah, blah. I think he lives in America now. Welsh married Beth Quinn in 2005 and in 2018 announced that they were divorcing. Marriage, eh? I've never been married and I've got bloody no plans to do so. So he was married for 13 years. They had lived together in the Lakeview neighbourhood in Chicago. Prior to Chicago, he lived in Dublin. In 2018, he was living in Miami, USA. Nice. I could live there. In 2022, he married again Emma Curry, an actor and sister of Scottish musician Momus, whoever that is. So he's married again. In Walsh's early 20s, he was addicted to heroin. Oh, right, this explains a lot. In his early 20s, he was addicted to heroin for 18 months whilst playing in punk rock bands moving between Edinburgh and London. Only 18 months. Yeah, his books are about drugs and politics, I'd say. Here we go, bibliography, Train Spotting, Marabou Stalk Nightmares, Filth, Glue, Porno, The Bedroom Secrets of Master Chefs, Crime, Skag Boys, The Sex Lives of Siamese Twins, A Decent Ride, The Blade Artist, Dead Men's Trousers, The Long Knives. Oh, he's got a new one out, by the way, Resolution, released this year, which is a crime novel. It follows a detective. He moves away from Scotland and he goes to Brighton, I think. Right, so trains. Yeah, he's got short story collections. Reheated Cabbage. Yeah, so I'm probably gonna read Filth by Irving Welsh next. Paul, it's interesting you say Ligotti are a bit disturbing. I find both a little bland and mainstream when compared to the original pessimist authors they draw upon. Schopenhauer, Banson. Yeah, I haven't read any Schopenhauer. Somebody told me that all of this pessimism stuff goes back to him. I just don't want to put myself through it anymore. I just don't need to be. I don't need to be reminded of any of that stuff. If anything, I need to bloody distract myself from it. I don't need to read any more of it. Many years ago, when I was learning English, I occasionally looked through Train Spotting and noticed that the grammar in the book was unusual. Yeah, it seemed to me like a more complicated type of English for those who are learning. Is there really any difference in writing? Right, Irving Welsh is Scottish, and the characters in his book speak a working class Scottish dialogue, and it's quite different from standard English. So if you're a non-native English speaker, you're gonna find his books very weird. Yeah, you're gonna find that quite weird. even as a native English speaker, it's the dialogue. The Scottish dialogue is quite strange. They say "I" instead of "yes." Just that's just one example among many. So yeah, it's an acquired taste. His books are an acquired taste, but he certainly stays true to his Scottish roots. That's for sure. I think some writers. I mean, when I write, I tend to write in correct standard English. I do that. I grew up in South London, but I was kind of exposed to the Cockney accent and another very annoying accent, which is officially called the multicultural London accent, which I can't stand. I can't be around that. If I'm writing about a character who's Cockney, I'll make his dialogue Cockney or whatever. But my stories tend to be set in a fictional place called Mafano City anyway. So I've just written a short story called The 7-Day Tenant, and there's a Cockney character in that, and I've made his dialogue quite Cockney in that. So I do it as well, but I think, generally speaking, all of Irving Welsh's novels have like a working class Scottish dialogue in them. Some of you might have seen my recent video called Dead Inside by Chandler Morrison. I really enjoyed that book. That was, I was about to say a pleasant experience. I think pleasant is the wrong word. Let's have a look at Chandler Morrison. He certainly looks hip. He certainly looks trendy. Chandler Morrison. Let's look at the images. There are some photographs of him, black and white photos of him lounging around wearing sunglasses, looking very cool indeed. He looks quite young, wearing a leather jacket. So yeah, he's standing with a backdrop of palm trees, looking very hip and cool. He certainly looks the part. He certainly looks the part. Let's see what I can read about him. He's a good writer, Chandler Morrison. Dead Inside is well written. Does he have a Wikipedia page? I can't find one. Substack. InChandlerWeTrust.com. He's active on Twitter by the looks of it. Let's have a look at InChandlerWeTrust.com. What horror authors do you enjoy the most? First time I watched Trainspotting, I didn't have subs, so I missed some key elements from the plot. Subtitles. Yeah, it's a good film, that. It's a good film. I love the Scottish accent. I haven't watched Trainspotting in years and years. I've got it on DVD. I'm going to watch it again soon, but again, it's something about Scotland that depresses the fuck out of me. It's that setting, it's that grey, dingy setting that puts me off watching it. Even though all of my stories are dingy and horrific, it's just something about Scotland or the UK in general that puts me off watching it. What horror authors do you enjoy the most? Well, I'm going to read some more of Chandler Morrison. Chandler Morrison and Matthew Stokoe. Yeah, it's very great. Right, Chandler Morrison, writer, bio. Chandler Morrison is the author of 8 books already. He's only young, including Dead Inside and Thigh Gap. His short fiction has appeared in numerous anthologies and literary journals. He lives in Los Angeles. Of course he does. Somebody that cool has to live in LA. Let's have a look at his books. Or not. Right. American Narcissus. He's got a book called American Narcissus. The American dream is dead, and Los Angeles is burning. Stoned and porn-addicted surfer Baxter Kent is terrified of women and anxious to make things work with a sex robot. Nice. Acid junkie Arden Coover has a useless philosophy degree and a doomed relationship he believes might save him. His younger sister Tess is considering or resisting a convenient but loveless marriage to a wealthy, narcissistic novelist. Ryland Richter, an alcoholic insurance executive with too much money and too few scruples, is seeking toxic solace in the arms of a dangerously unhinged subordinate. As wildfires rage, this lost and hopeless cast makes their way through the embers of Los Angeles and beyond in a desperate search for meaning and connection in a world without a future. Chandler Morrison's latest satire explores our search for love in all the wrong places and what happens when we think we find it. Now, I want to read that. That seems to me like a very entertaining premise for a novel, American Narcissist. So that is on my TBR list, American Narcissist. What else? Thigh Gap. This sounds interesting. Great cover. It's like this gothic cover, gothic horror cover. LA fashion model Helen Troy wasn't always skinny. Drastic weight loss has given her everything. Money, confidence, attention, respect. Being thin has legitimized her, and starvation has become an addiction. Following an encounter with a seemingly perfect rival model who destabilizes Helen's shaky self-confidence and shatters her fragile illusion of control, she's sent into a tragic tailspin that will take her to the lowest depths of hell. Nightmarish versions of herself begin materializing in mirrors, and her tried and true coping mechanisms stop working. Reality comes apart at the seams as Helen's disease manifests in increasingly self-destruction. I can't bloody speak. Destructive fashions, forcing her to ask herself, what does perfection look like, and how much would you sacrifice to obtain it? All right, so Thigh Gap seems to me like a female bulimic, where you eat loads of food and then chuck it up again. It's like a novel about an insecure female. Might be okay. It's not exactly a man's novel, but it might be okay. He's also got human-shaped fiends. Right, the cover to this is good. It's like an old school cover. Looks like it's been illustrated. A splatter western. Right, but it's set in 1854, and that's not my thing. This is about a band of teenage outlaws in a brutal 1854 LA, sheriff, crime. Oh, but then it might switch to LA in 2021. Self-womanizer novelist. Right, I think this might be a kind of meta thing. In the book description, it goes to LA 2021. Chandler Morrison has been contracted to write a Western. He knows what kind of book his fans want, but he's torn between his commitment to the craft and the brand to which he believes he is expected to adhere. As he sinks deeper into deluded self-importance while juggling a number of surface-level relationships, the line separating fiction from reality becomes increasingly blurred. Right, well, I don't like reading stuff from the 19th century, or that's set in that period. But this looks like a meta thing. Where, yeah, I think he's actually on the front cover, comes to think of it. Yeah, okay, it might be good. It might be good. I've got faith in this author. After reading Dead Inside, along the path of torment. Great cover, LA. T. Seward is a sick man, anorexic, sexually abhorrent, and ghosted and haunted by a ghostly apparition residing in his closet. Living in the shadow of an in-remission cancer he fully expects to return, T bitterly learns his meagre living by working as an assistant to his uncle, a business and media mogul who runs a lucrative prostitution ring catering to the Hollywood elite. Right, I like this kind of thing. When T's line of work introduces him to a precocious teenage girl who seems to possess a shrewdly keen insight into his inner machinations, he is forced to confront his hidden demons and repressed trauma, embarking on a bleak and harrowing odyssey of self-discovery in the decomposing city of angels. This looks like it's a bit like High Life by Matthew Stokoe, and that's a good thing in my eyes. So I could even read that, Along the Path of Torment. So far, American Narcissus looks appealing to me. Human-Shaped Friends, this one looks good. Dead Inside, I've already read. Until the Sun. Oh, good cover. Very good covers. Very good covers. Got myself a little vape stick. I don't use it a lot. I'm just a kind of occasional vapor. Until the Sun. If you could liberate yourself of these burdens, with any responsibility, authority, mortality, if you could liberate yourself of these burdens, would any cost be too great? On a hot August night, a troubled 15-year-old boy of a tragic past wakes to find his tyrannical foster parents murdered by a trio of nocturnal, blood-drinking heathens. The killers give him the opportunity for a new life, one where he can be relieved of traditional hardships, vanquish his enemies, and attain a sense of true belonging. At the cost of what little remains of his humanity, the life he is offered is one of eternal darkness. But the promise of undying acceptance, freedom, and power gives it an appeal that his current dreaded existence is lacking. Fraught with resentment over his catastrophic adolescence and confronted by ambiguous notions of good and evil, he is forced to explore a dark world on the fringe between bliss and oblivion. As he edges ever closer to a climactic encounter with the demons that plague his soul, he discovers just how dangerous it is to be young and alienated in modern society. Again, it looks good. Excellent cover. I'm going to read all of these because I'm trying to decide which Chandler Morrison book to read next. Hate to Feel. Don't like the cover of this one. It's basically a photo. I like illustration. Derek Diver, a spoiled Midwestern millennial with money, good looks, and not much else, yearns for an end to his existential lamentations. Burdened with oversensitivity and unbridled emotions, he wants only to become numb. Drugs and alcohol are too temporary and fleeting. Empty promiscuity just leads to more sadness and self-loathing. Nothing works. But when he falls in love with a married co-worker who's 17 years his senior, his inner conflicts reach fever pitch. It begins a rapid descent down a road of longing, hatred and violence. By the novel's conclusion, despite Derek's desperate attempts to anaesthetize himself, no one is left unscathed. Another story about a young person with problems. Okay. He's got money. And he finds an older woman. All right. Have you read any J.G. Ballard? Yes, I certainly have. I've read plenty of Ballard. I'm a big fan of Crash. I've read, The Drowned World. I really like The Drowned World. I also went on to read The Crystal World and The Burned World, but I wasn't as blown away by those two. My favourite books of Ballard are Crash and The Drowned World. I would recommend those two. I've read a lot of his short stories as well. Some of his short stories are very good. I would recommend the collected short stories of J.G. Ballard, Volume 2. Volume 1, the stories in Volume 1 are a bit dated now. And because those stories were written when he was kind of developing his style, I'd avoid them. Some of them are good, but I'd skip to Volume 2. I'm going to do a video soon. 5 short stories for fans of Thomas Ligotti, or 5 short stories for pessimists. And there's a J.G. Ballard short story in that list. So I won't mention it now. I'll save it for that video. There's a comment here from Thomas Ligotti. Don't know whether it's the real Thomas Ligotti or not. I just came back from war in Israel. Thomas Ligotti is correct about humans. It's horrible to see. Wow. You've just come back from the war in Israel. I bet that was rough. Yeah. How do you solve that one? How do you solve that bloody war? Beyond me. Right. Hate to Feel. I've just read that one. Hate to Feel. Right, one more. Just to See Hell. Chandler Morrison. The cover's not that good here. Oh, it's a collection of short stories. Chandler's thematic nihilism is on full display. Into the Face, a disillusioned and world-weary man takes Buddhist destruction of self ideals to horrifying new extremes. Then, in Somewhere Between Screaming and Crying, an alcoholic mother implements a unique blend of violence and culinary creativity to get back at her cheating husband. I like the sound of this one. Mechanical Patriots, a young soldier coming to grips with the way the realities of militaristic jingoism, great word, contrast with his deluded dreams of valor and heroism. In the concluding novella, Coming Down, Jesus is betrayed by his father and in a series of rebellious acts forms an unlikely friendship with the devil, Yawn, and ventures into a night of excess and sin. The debauchery culminates into events. Okay, so he's got a short story collection here. Right, so look out for another Chandler Morrison book review from me. That's in the pipeline. And other than him, I'm going to read another book by Matthew Stokoe. I read Cows by Matthew Stokoe. I loved it. I might even reread it. I like that book. It's silly. It's got talking cows in it, but I love the atmosphere in that book. When you read that book, I mean, that's great. When you read Cows by Matthew Stokoe, you feel as though you're in this grey, grimy world. But it's not set in England or Scotland. It's not actually mentioned where the town is, but it feels grey and it feels like green almost, because the writing is so good. And I also read that book whilst on holiday in Cambodia. So it reminds me of my holiday, and that's a good thing. It's kind of linked with a good time. And that led me on to High Life, which I really enjoyed. High Life is almost ridiculously shocking. It's like everything has been thrown into that book. But it's good. I've actually DNF'd The Empty Mile. Stokoe has only got 4 books, as far as I can see. He's only published 4 books. Cows, High Life, Empty Mile, and another one called The Colony of Whores. Empty Mile is boring. I've kind of DNF'd it. I don't think I'm going to bother with that. From what I can read, from what I've read of the reviews, Colony of Whores is a bit more like High Life. It's like a shady Hollywood underworld kind of thing. So I think I might give that a chance, give that a go. He seems to be quite elusive, Matthew Stokoe. Let's see what I can see of him online. He's quite a good-looking bloke. He's got grey hair. He's quite slim. He tends to wear shades. There are not that many photos of him. There's another Matthew Stokoe who's not, probably an actor or something. That's not him. Yeah, he doesn't have a big online presence, really, Matthew Stokoe. His first book, Cows, is very famous online, though. He's on loads of lists and stuff. Right, Matthew Stokoe has a Wikipedia page and a website. Stokoe was born in England, graduated from University of East London, where he studied economics. But that was boring. And has lived in Australia, New Zealand, and the US. Stokoe has written several books. Well, no, he's written 4, and film scenarios, and also co-wrote the internet comic Flick and Jew. He is mostly known for his brutal, noir, violent style of writing. Among his favourite authors are Raymond Chandler, Hubert Selby, and Nelson Algren. Bibliography. 4 books. Cows, 1998, High Life, 2002, Empty Mile, 2010, Colony of Whores, 2014. His Wikipedia page is quite brief. Let's have a quick look at his website. Yeah, 4 books. Yeah, he's got like a brief bio on here. He's got a blog. Let's see when he last put a blog post on it. April. I presume it's this year. I would like to start doing a few author interviews on my channel. It'd be good to do that. I've thought about inviting Matthew Stokoe onto my channel for an interview. I don't know whether he'd accept or not, but I'd like to start doing that, doing a few author interviews. Well, let me know what you think about that, if you'd like to see that. I don't know what software I'd use. Maybe Skype. Shouldn't be too hard. Yeah, he's got a few blog posts. I was an economics professor. So, sorry, philosophics. Look, economics is a proper topic. It's an important topic, but it's just not my thing, really. When I hear people talking about economics, I kind of switch off. Right, now here's something interesting. On Matthew Stokoe's official website, on his blog, there's a blog post with G.C. Mackay, who's a friend of mine. It's a video review of Cows by G.C. Mackay, and Matthew Stokoe has actually put that up on his official website. Colony of Horrors Collector's Edition. That's interesting. Let's have a look at this. Yeah, he's got a video review by G.C. Mackay of Cows, 2019. He just put it up there. He hasn't written anything. There's a recent blog post about cows. Yeah, somebody's done a review of cows, another one, and he's put the review up. And it's a new one as well, in 2024. See, it's a very famous book. That I might reread it. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people dismiss cows as being just gross shock horror, and it is on some level, but there's also some good writing there. It reminded me of Apocalypse Now. I kind of describe cows as a bovine apocalypse now. I think it's a good book if you can ignore the ridiculousness of talking cows. Yeah, so I think I'm going to read Colony of Whores. So I think the next two books I'm going to read are going to be Filth, Irving Welsh, and Colony of Whores by Matthew Stokoe. I think that's what I've got in the pipeline coming up. So if you've got any questions for me, just leave a comment, because I think I'm going to wrap this up soon. I'm going to wrap this up. So after about 4.5 years on YouTube, I now have 1.21 thousand subscribers. Pretty good. It's pretty good, you know. I'm not up there with the top dogs or anything, but it's something. It's something. I'm on Goodreads. I'm on Goodreads, yes. I've got a Goodreads profile, and every time I read a book, I review it on there. I don't always leave a written review for books on Goodreads, but I always give them a star rating on there. So yes, you can find me on Goodreads. I've been on there for a while now. It's a good website. The app isn't very good. See, I find the Goodreads app is quite buggy, but Goodreads is a good website. So yeah, I'm currently working on a new book of short stories. I'm actually going to leave you with a bombshell. Actually, I'm going to leave you some kind of bombshell in a moment. German Franco, hello, I'm new to the horror genre. Why are you so interested in it? Good question. Good question. I like reading horror because it's not boring, for a start. It's quite rare to read a boring horror story. So that's one thing. And I think I've just got the mind, or the mindset, that's attracted to. I'm attracted to unusual things. I'm attracted to shocking things. I've just got that personality type. When I read a book, I just need to read a story that's got some kind of murder or killing in it, some kind of bloodshed. If it hasn't got that, it just doesn't appeal to me. I've never read Harry Potter, and I never will. Fantasy doesn't do it for me either. I'm not really into fantasy. Science fiction's good. I like a bit of sci-fi, but I think horror is my main genre. I dabble in sci-fi horror as well, but I'm mainly a horror person. Look, I'm going to wrap this up, but I would like to leave you with a quick bombshell. I've actually landed a publishing deal. I've got about 10 books on Amazon, and most of which are free. By making my books free, I've kind of made them more discoverable. And about a week ago, I got an email from a publisher, a small publisher. I won't mention any names or anything yet. And they basically said, free of your short story collections, of mine, they like, and they've actually bought them from me. And they've given me a publishing deal. And this is very exciting for me. After many years of writing in isolation, being haunted by the idea that I might be completely wasting my time and wasting my life doing so, it appears that my bloody hard work is paying off at last. So I'm going to do a separate video about this once this deal and contract gets finalized and everything is like totally confirmed. But yeah, it's looking quite good. Exciting times. All right, so look out for a video about that in the near future. Okay. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. If you've subscribed to my channel, thanks very much for doing so. If you haven't done so already, please do so. Have a great day. I'll be back in about one week, maybe 2 weeks, with another book review. In the meantime, try to have a good day on this horrific... What kind of rock is it? It's horrific, it's unpredictable, and it's unforgiving. Try to have a good day on this weird rock we call Earth. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great day. Lots of literary love. Goodbye.